Hello again, everybody, and thank you for joining us on our next edition of Utility Corner. Joining us again today is Green Home Systems Managing Director Robbie Hebert, as well as Allan Timko, who is the Energy Analyst and Research Executive for Green Home Systems. Thanks for your time again today, gentlemen.
Hi, how you doing, John?
Hello.
Today, we'll be discussing the new net energy metering policy that the California Public Utility Commission is proposing, known as NEM 3.0. This is the policy which dictates how homeowners are compensated when they overproduce energy compared to their usage. Robbie, how does this new proposed policy differ from what's currently in place?
The new policy, NEM 3, as they're calling it, versus what's in place now, NEM 2, for PG&E and Southern California Edison to a larger degree, and then to a lesser degree, San Diego Gas and Electric. The difference would be that, generally speaking, with NEM 2.0, what we have in place now, homeowners can, overproduce during the day while the sun's out versus what they actually happen to be using in real time, and push that excess onto the grid, and then they're allowed to, in a simple explanation, they're allowed to take that energy back off the grid to use in the evening, which is when most people use the majority of their power. Well, with this new policy, the NEM 3.0, NEM 3.0, what will happen is all the excess during the days that you produce and didn't get around to using, that gets pushed onto the grid, when you're pulling that back off the grid at night, you're going to get charged retail. And the exact price per kilowatt hour that you're paying is going to change hourly based on what that retail price would have been, say, if you didn't have a solar system to begin with. It's a big downgrade versus the net metering policy that they have now, the 2.0.
Allan, do homeowners have any option to make any adjustments to offset the proposed new regulations?
Well, the first thing they can do is qualify, get in line as soon as possible to qualify for the existing NEM 2.0 program. And better yet, get a storage battery to be prepared for future rate hikes. That's the first thing they can do. After the new program is implemented, it will still be beneficial to have a battery, but the main part of it is they're able to get the NEM 2.0. They'll be better off than the NEM 3.0. It's obviously they're tightening the screws, making things less attractive for solar consumers in the state.
When it becomes 3.0, it's going to put homeowners in a position whereby you purchase a battery, instead of throwing that energy back into the grid, you're going to use that other production, that excess production, to charge your battery. And then when evening rolls around, instead of pulling energy back off the grid and paying retail for it, you're going to cycle your battery and instead use that power that you've then built up in the battery with that excess production, i.e., that battery will provide you a way to store that excess as opposed to pushing it back up onto the grid and then having to pay retail to take it off. Now, the good news is it'd be great to have a battery anyway, so that you have some backup storage for when grids go down. Some people don't want to be forced to have a battery for their interconnection policy to actually work for them on a ROI level.
In the NEM 3.0 world, it will be very, very advantageous to homeowners to have, for example, a programmable thermostat that syncs in with the value of the credit of the energy that they put back into the grid, so they can optimize when it does roll back to the grid. That credit will be less than the retail value of the hourly rate. It'll be more of a avoided cost of the retail value. So it's going to range in the low, approximately 2 cents. And the good news is that in the hours of, say, 7 to 9 p.m. weekdays, if someone's not around, they can program their battery to dump the kilowatt hours on the grid. They don't need it, and they can get a very nice amount. It's not full retail, but it's a pretty darn good credit. A whole lot better than a single-digit cents per kilowatt hour.
If the new policy is indeed approved, when is it scheduled to go into effect?
The way that the California Public Utilities Commission has written up the proposal, they said that once it is officially decided on, which may take place in early December, is that they still have 120 days for the old policy to be in effect. Now, how long will the utilities, Edison, SCE, and PG&E, Pacific Gas and Electric, and also down south in San Diego Gas and Electric, those are the three affected utilities. They may come up and say, look, we're not able to take these applications anymore when it gets a month and a half, 2 months away from the deadline. So there is 120 days of the calendar after it's officially approved for NEM 3.0 to go into effect.
We expect it to be approved, before the end of this year, which means approximately by, April, that'll be that. It'll be NEM 3.0. And
Right.
so what Allan is saying simply is you need to be thinking that your deadline is really the end of February, because there's a really, really big chance that once we go past February, in those last 45 to 60 days, they're just going to be so bogged down that they're just going to cut everybody off. So another thing is you need to be careful, make sure you're using a company, they're using their own in-house engineers, and their project managers are very experienced. And so that way, you're not getting stuck in a situation whereby you're using an inexperienced installer who's getting repeated corrections to the plans and the interconnection agreement. Then you got no shot, even if you're starting in January.
So I know it's this new proposed changes. It's just for those three utility companies that you mentioned. For California solar homeowners who are not using those three, who have different utilities, is their policy the same? Is it still NEM 2.0, or do they have something different, or what are they going to continue to have that the others won't have if NEM 3.3 goes through, or 3.0 goes through?
So great question. The other utilities, we call them, owned by the city, municipals, and there are some other entities called cooperatives. Those have their own policy based on what they've sent to the California Public Utilities Commission based on their economics. So they have their own individual agreements, and that's what I spend a large part of my time on, is keeping those as current as possible so we have accurate information when we prepare a proposal.
Or solar friendly, and which ones are most attractive to go with.
Exactly.
Robbie, one question I was wondering about is if NEM 3.0 does go through, is Green Home Systems going to adjust what they would be recommending to homeowners, perhaps getting a system that wouldn't overproduce? Would the cost savings on a smaller system offset what they're no longer getting going from 2.0 to 3.0?
Well, at the end of the day, strategy-wise, in terms of coverage, size of the system, is going to be based primarily upon the sales rep having a conversation with the homeowner to find out, hey, approximately what percentage of your energy are you using during the day, during production hours, solar PV production hours, versus the percentage of power that a homeowner might be using in the evening. So for example, homeowners that are in their 30s and 40s and 50s that are still out in the world working all day long, and then the kids are off at school, there's nobody really home, maybe one person here or there at home, they might be using only 20% of their power, total power during the day during production hours. So they were obviously they would want a smaller covered system versus a homeowner who's, let's say, retired and going to sleep at 8:30 every night and getting up at 4 a.m. Even though I'm still working, this is kind of the schedule I'm on. But some people live that way, and so they're using most of their power in the evening. During the day, because they're home all day long. And they're living the majority of their life, sun up to sun down. And so that factors into it a great deal. And also we want to get close to somewhere between, depending on that scenario, somewhere between an 80 and 100% covered system, because you also need to have enough power or generate enough power to not just provide you the power you need during the day, but enough power, you need to produce enough power to also charge the battery and fill the battery. And that way you can be cycling the battery in the evening so that you're not having to pull energy off the grid at night. Typically, the systems will always be between 80 and 100% covered versus what you use on an annual basis.
So somebody who's got an 80% system, that final 20 that they need to pull off the grid will, in the new proposed 3.0, they'd be paying those retail prices for. But if they had a battery, then they could draw it from their battery and not necessarily have to pay the retail prices from the grid. Is that accurate?
Well, you gotta make sure that you have a system that's going to produce what you're going to use during the day and fill the battery. Maybe an 85% covered system is enough. There's a lot of information that goes into it.
There's certainly more incentives to keep an eye out on turning the lights off and utilizing energy efficient appliances and that sort of thing. Once these digital policies go into effect, and people are going to have their eyes open a lot, I imagine, on what ways they can conserve energy so they're not having to have that big of an issue as they're as it may.
That's a good point. People are definitely going to need to be more diligent and mindful about their consumption in the evening.
The beauty of the time we live in now is that we're getting more and more to having homes that are on a smart programmable features. So for example, you can come home, plug in your electric vehicle, but not have it start charging until 9:01 p.m. Okay. So you don't get hit with the
when the
peak
power
rates.
gets much cheaper. Yeah.
Right. And that can be done for other appliances too. You can perhaps program your pool pump and filter to come on at 8, 9 a.m. in the morning. Don't use the pump on Friday because Saturday and Sunday you get the off-peak lower rates all weekend. There's some things depending on the appliances that use the most energy in a home. Same with air conditioning. That kind of thing can be programmed in so it doesn't completely change their standard of living, quality of life, focus on their family and life they lead and things they do. Now when they want to turn on something that uses a lot of power that's not programmed, yes, they will have to maybe think twice about when they're doing that. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah.
And are those efficiency practices things that the sales team at Green Home Systems advise the homeowners of when they put a new system in?
Yeah, absolutely. We also include energy efficient devices as bonus packages when homeowners going solar, or they add a battery. We'll include some energy efficient products as well.
Those are new things that people are going to have to start taking into consideration. It's going to actually educate the homeowners. It'll be certainly a great things for them to know, to be able to save on their utility bills for sure.
The days whereby we could all just pay our utility bill, those days are over. Simply because everybody's utility bill is going to double in approximately the next 7 years. And we already pay more than anybody else in the country for utilities. When you get on the phone with an expert and you just have a 40-minute conversation, you'll come away from that conversation with a real deep understanding of all these concepts and a real deep understanding of what the strategy would be for you individually in a customized way.
If it's passed as proposed, there will be a monthly fee, but it'll be approximately $14 to $16 or so per month. Whereas right now with the NEM 2.0 and those that are also grandfathered in on NEM 1, there is no extra monthly charge in addition to their standard customer charge that allows them to be connected to the grid. So it looks like the utilities are going to get that in there.
Real quick, I just want to make sure that nobody, that people don't get confused here and think that the $14 to $16 upcharge that Allan was mentioning is indicative of the total uptick in cost should you decide to go solar once it becomes NEM 3.0. That's just one solid base charge on top of all the other expenses and retail rates that you're going to be paying to pull power out at night with your solar system. That doesn't mean that that's the totality of the cost difference. with respect to waiting versus going solar now.
Well, thanks very much for all the information. That's going to be very valuable for our customers that are the PG&E, SoCal Edison, and San Diego Gas and Electric as well. So thanks again, you guys. It was great. This is going to be some valuable information that we can send out to our homeowners that have those utilities. So I really appreciate your input and sharing your thoughts with us. Thanks so much for joining on this episode of Utility Corner.
Have a good day, you guys.
Take care.